Growing older does not break you all at once. It wears you down quietly through the small habits you repeat every day, as if nothing is happening. And that is the problem. A lot of people reach a certain age believing decline is only the calendar's fault, when in reality it is also sped up by the couch. Poor sleep, bad food, isolation, constant worry, and that habit of ignoring what the body has been trying to tell them for a long time. Then they are surprised when their energy fades, their mind slows down and their mood hits the floor. Right, as if the body were some eternal machine that can take any abuse just because it has already lasted many years. Stay with me. Gabriel here. Welcome to the Stoic Garden. Today, we are going to walk through 8 things you need to avoid if you want to stop pushing your body and mind toward faster aging than you should be facing. And stay until the end, because the last point does not show up right away in lab tests or in the mirror, but it can steal more peace, more strength, and more life from you than many bad habits put together. Let us begin. 1. Stop living in a chair and move every day, even if it is only a little. Let us start with something so basic that many people dismiss it for that very reason. Spending all day sitting ages you faster than you realize. And no, you do not need to become an athlete or climb a mountain before breakfast to understand it. You only need to look at what happens when the body stays still for hours and hours. The legs shut down, the back starts to curve, circulation grows sluggish, energy drops, and the mind starts working with all the glorious enthusiasm of a battery at 3%. The problem is that many older people convince themselves of a dangerous lie. Since it is already hard for me to move, I should move even less. And that line of thinking, which sounds cautious, ends up being a trap. Because the body responds to what you repeat, not to what you promise. If every day you teach it stillness, it gives you stiffness in return. If every day you teach it neglect, it answers with decline. Then the time comes to get up from a chair and it feels like you are negotiating with your own knees as if they were 2 irritated civil servants. Moving is not punishing yourself. It is reminding your body that you are still here, that life is still in charge and not resignation. Walking a little, stretching your arms, going up and down carefully, sweeping, watering plants, taking a short walk down the street, all of that counts. Small things, when done every day, stop being small. What is absurd is expecting strength to come from complete stillness. That is a curious kind of faith. And here it is worth asking yourself an uncomfortable question. Are you really tired? Or have you simply gotten out of the habit of moving? Because those are not the same thing. Very often it is not that the body cannot, it is that the habit gave up first. You sit more, walk less, depend on more support, lose confidence, and end up believing the problem is only age, when it is also surrender. It hurts to hear it, of course, but it hurts even more to lose your independence because you handed control over to comfort. The Stoics understood something very simple that we still keep forgetting today. Discipline does not always arrive with drums. Sometimes it comes through short, steady steps. Musonius Rufus, who did not speak of philosophy as decoration but as medicine for the soul, defended a sober, active, practical life. And he was right. The body needs use, not contemplation. You do not gain dignity by watching life from a chair all day long. You gain it by taking part in it, even slowly, even with limits, even if you are starting with 10 minutes. Besides, moving does not only protect muscles and joints, it protects something even more valuable, your sense of capability. When you walk every day, even if only a little, you are telling your mind that you can still respond, still support yourself, still step out to meet the day instead of hiding from it. And that changes your mood. It changes your posture. It even changes the way you speak to yourself. A person who keeps moving preserves more than mobility. They preserve presence. I'm not selling you fantasies of eternal youth. That is not how it works. You are going to grow older, of course you are, but growing older with dignity is one thing, and speeding up decline through sheer neglect disguised as routine is something entirely different. The body does not ask for heroic feats. It asks you not to betray it every day with stillness, laziness, and elegant excuses. So start where you are, with what you have and however you can, but start. Take that short walk. Get up more often. Stretch your body when you wake up. Move around inside the house if you do not feel like going outside. Do something, because every day you choose movement. You are telling aging it is not getting in here without resistance. And that calm, steady, almost invisible resistance is worth far more than most people imagine. 2. Stop staying up late and protect your sleep as if it were medicine. This is where a lot of people act tough until the body sends them the bill. Sleeping badly is not some modern quirk or a badge of productivity. It is a slow form of wear and tear. And once you are 70 or older, that wear and tear does not take long to show. The mind gets foggy, memory slips more often, your mood becomes fragile, the body takes longer to recover, and even small aches feel bigger. Yet many people still brag about sleeping 4 or 5 hours as if that were discipline. No, that is abuse with a nighttime schedule. Sleep is not wasted time. It is deep maintenance. While you sleep well, the body repairs, the brain clears itself out, energy gets reorganized, and the whole system slows down so it does not live in a constant state of emergency. When that breaks down night after night, you age faster on the inside, even if on the outside you are still trying to look normal. And the body does not negotiate with appearances. It does not care if you say, "I can handle it." Enduring something does not mean coming out unscathed. A lot of older people also fall into another dangerous habit. They fall asleep with the television on, eat dinner late, lie there circling their worries, get up at all kinds of hours, nap during the day without control, and then wonder why they are not truly resting. Of course, the body needs rhythm and you turn every night into a circus. Then you say sleep is not what it used to be. Well, naturally, if you treat it like leftover time instead of treating it like medicine. In the middle of the night, when everything goes quiet, another truth shows up that almost no one wants to face. How many times is it not your body keeping you awake, but your mind? You lie down and instead of resting, you open an endless file of problems, memories, imaginary arguments and recycled fears. And what does that mind in full tragedy mode accomplish at 2 in the morning? Nothing useful. It only steals your rest, makes your fears feel bigger, and leaves you worse off for the next day. A brilliant strategy, of course. Marcus Aurelius, who carried an empire, wars, and responsibilities that would leave you with no excuses for years, wrote something powerful. Do every act of your life as though it were the very last act of your life, free from all distraction, from all apathy, and from all pretense. He did not say it so you would live in a rush, but so you would live with inner order. And sleep is part of that order. A man like that knew the undisciplined mind sabotages itself. At night too. Especially at night. Protecting your sleep requires very specific decisions and far less romance than some people would like. Eat a lighter dinner. Do not fill your evenings with screens and overstimulation. Slow down before bed. Keep decent hours. Darken the room. See a doctor if the problem keeps happening. None of that sounds epic, I know. But nearly everything that preserves real life is that unglamorous. Wisdom usually wears boring clothes. And here is something important. Sleeping well is also a form of self-respect. Because when you rest, you think better, decide better, and handle pain, frustration, and effort better. Your patience improves, your balance improves. Even the way you move through the day changes. On the other hand, poor sleep makes you clumsier, more irritable, and more vulnerable. It is like going out every morning to fight life with broken tools. So stop negotiating with the night. Do not turn insomnia into a habit or exhaustion into your identity. Your sleep is worth more than another hour of mindless television, more than another round of useless thoughts, more than that foolish habit of resisting rest as if sleeping meant surrendering. Sleeping well does not make you weak. It keeps you clear-headed. And at a certain age, clarity is worth gold because it lets you preserve something you should not give away so easily, command over yourself. 3. Cut back on sugar, ultra-processed foods, and eating late at night. Here we step into territory where a lot of people fool themselves with almost touching tenderness. They say that at their age, they are not going to deny themselves anything, that we all have to die of something, that one little treat will not hurt. And sure, one occasional treat does not bring anyone down. The problem begins when that little treat becomes routine, routine becomes disorder, and disorder becomes a way of living that inflames the body, clouds the mind, and speeds up decline as if you were pouring gasoline on a slow-burning fire. Too much sugar, ultra-processed food, and those heavy dinners at ridiculous hours do not only affect the scale. If only it were that simple. What they really do is disrupt your energy, your sleep, your digestion, your mental clarity, and even your mood. You eat badly and sleep worse. You sleep worse. And the next day you have less strength to take care of yourself. You have less strength, and you go right back to eating whatever is easiest. That is how the perfect cycle of wear and tear gets built. Nothing spectacular, nothing dramatic, just a very polite and very steady kind of self-destruction. And then there is that common self-deception of thinking that an older body no longer responds. It does respond. Of course it responds. It responds to everything, to the good and to the bad. It responds to too much sugar, to daily inflammation, to hidden salt, to poor quality fats, to dinners that land like bricks just when the body should be winding down. Then you wake up feeling heavy, bloated, not truly hungry, with broken sleep and a sluggishness you cannot explain. Well, it came from your plate. It is that simple. Halfway down the road, it is worth stopping for a second and asking yourself something. Do you really eat because you are hungry, or because of habit, boredom, and anxiety? Because those are not the same thing. A lot of people open the fridge not because the body is asking for food, but because the emptiness inside is making noise, and they mistake that noise for appetite. And then out come the cookies, the sweet bread, the processed meats, the late-night snacking, that habit of rewarding themselves with the very things that later weaken them. A brilliant strategy, yes, very much like trying to put out a fire with kerosene. Seneca, who knew quite a lot about human excess before later choosing sobriety, left behind a valuable idea. If you want the soul to be strong, do not accustom it to luxury. And that applies to the table too. You do not need a magazine diet or a laboratory kitchen. You need moderation, restraint, and a little common sense. Eat simply, eat on time, eat less out of impulse and more out of awareness. Nothing heroic, but deeply transformative. At this stage, your body appreciates regularity more than abundance. A simple, well-chosen meal is worth far more than a banquet of ultra-processed food that leaves you dragging yourself to bed. Vegetables, enough protein, fruit in moderation, water, light dinners, reasonable hours. It does not sound very exciting, I know, but exciting usually gets expensive when inflammation, heaviness, and that strange fatigue that never fully goes away start to show up. And this is not about banning yourself from living or turning every meal into some sad ceremony. It is about not using food as hidden self-punishment, because that is what many people do without saying it out loud. They fill themselves with products the body barely recognizes, eat dinner too late, keep going back to sugar as if it was spiritual fuel, and then wonder why they feel drained. What exactly were you expecting? Mental clarity after mistreating your digestive system every night. Eating better does not give you back 20 years, but it can give you back something just as valuable. Lightness, more stable energy, better sleep, and less mental fog. And at your age, that is no small thing. It changes the whole day. So cut back on sugar, stop living off packaged food, and do not turn the night into a dumping ground for useless calories. The body gets older, yes, but there is no need to help it along with such dedication. 4. Cut out alcohol and tobacco if you want to preserve your energy and mental sharpness. We are no longer talking about harmless habits or small indulgences. We are talking about two old, well-known, and shameless thieves. One steals your oxygen, lung capacity, and endurance. The other throws off your sleep, blood pressure, mood, balance, and mental clarity. And even so, there are still people who defend them with touching loyalty, as if cigarettes and drinks were lifelong friends, and not two saboteurs quietly leaving you more fragile on the inside. As you get older, your margin gets smaller. What the body once tolerated through sheer force, it now feels much faster. Smoking does not just punish the lungs or the heart anymore, it also speeds up the loss of energy, worsens circulation, harms the skin, damages tissues, and dims that sense of vitality that is already hard enough to hold on to after 70. And alcohol, no matter how some people dress it up as a social habit or a little aid to relax, can throw off your rest, affect your memory, dehydrate you and hit you where it hurts most, your daily stability. The worst part is that both usually come wrapped in a very elegant lie. I am in control. Yes, of course. You are so in control that you need it to calm down, to socialize, to sleep, to get through the afternoon, to keep yourself from thinking too much. That is not called control. That is dependence wearing makeup. And the more it is repeated, the more normal it seems. That is the trick. A toxic habit does not always arrive like an enemy. Sometimes it shows up like a companion in your routine. That is why it is so hard to throw out. At this point, It is worth looking at yourself without decoration. What are you really preserving when you hold on to these habits? Pleasure or routine? Freedom or attachment? Because one thing is to enjoy something consciously, and something very different is to cling to what weakens you just because it has become part of the scenery. The body does not reward nostalgia. It does not say, "Poor man, he has smoked his whole life. Let us be patient with him." No. The body charges you. It always charges you. Epictetus, who was born a slave and ended up teaching inner freedom to men who thought they were powerful, understood this point perfectly. He said that no one is free who does not master himself, and that does not sound pretty, it sounds useful. Because if a substance governs your cravings, your nerves, or your routine, then you are not the one in charge. It is. And reaching old age without being able to govern yourself is not wise at all, no matter how harmless a habit you pretend it is. I know this bothers some people because it touches emotional nerves. A cigarette carries memories. A drink keeps company with loneliness, gatherings, celebrations, grief, and silence. But do not confuse companionship with familiar poison. Some things have stayed with you for years and still harmed you. That is an adult lesson, uncomfortable and necessary. Not everything familiar deserves to stay. Besides, quitting or seriously reducing these habits can bring benefits faster than you imagine. More air when you move, less strange fatigue, better rest, greater emotional stability, less psychological dependence, a stronger sense of control, and that once again is worth gold. Because it is not only about living longer, but about living with a clearer mind and a less beaten-up body. So stop treating alcohol and tobacco as if they were small, unavoidable indulgences. They are not. They are repeated decisions that bring you closer to or farther from a more dignified old age. At this point, you do not need more things that take your strength away. You need to get your strength back. And that begins when you stop opening the door, again and again, to the very things that steal it from you. 5. Do not isolate yourself. Stay connected to healthy people and keep at least a minimum social life. This point may seem less urgent than food or sleep, but sometimes it does more damage than you realize. Because isolation does not always arrive with drama. It does not show up one day knocking at the door and announcing its name. It comes quietly. You start going out less, calling less, replying less, showing less interest. Little by little, the house becomes a refuge, then a habit, and then a trench. And before you know it, you are not resting from the world. You are disconnecting from it. There are older people who shut themselves in because they are tired, because they lost someone, because they feel they no longer fit in, because they think they would be bothering people if they called, or because they have grown used to thinking they no longer have much to offer. And that is devastating. Not only because of emotional loneliness, but because the body and mind also start to dim when human exchange disappears. Talking to someone, laughing, hearing another voice, telling a story, going out for a while, feeling part of something, all of that keeps more alive than it seems. Long periods of isolation make you more vulnerable. You start thinking too much, moving less, caring less about your appearance, losing motivation, putting off tasks, feeling like every day is the same. And when the days start to look like grey copies of one another, the spirit sinks without making a sound. You do not need a tragedy to grow old quickly. Sometimes it is enough to stop having witnesses to your life. No one calls you, no one expects you, no one asks how you are. And you also stop seriously asking yourself, here it is worth pausing for a moment. Are you protecting yourself, or are you fading out? Because choosing peace is not the same as surrendering to confinement. There is a huge difference between enjoying calm and turning into a ghost of yourself. And yes, I know not every kind of company adds something good. There are exhausting, dramatic, gossipy, self-serving people too, the kind who leave you worse than they found you. That is why the point is not to be with just anyone. The point is to stay in touch with healthy people, with relationships that do not poison you, and with a minimum level of social activity that reminds you that you are still part of life. Seneca said that we become better when we spend time with those who can lift us up. He was not talking about popularity or filling your schedule with absurd commitments. He was talking about influence, atmosphere, the kind of people you share your time with. Because in the end, you breathe in the emotional climate of the people around you. If you stay around bitter, defeated people who have surrendered to complaining, you end up thinking that is normal. If you keep calm, active, decent people close, something inside you starts to settle into order too. You do not need to become the life of the party or go out every day and roam half the world. It is enough to hold on to something small but real: a phone call, a coffee, a visit, a walking group, a conversation after church, a class, a neighbor you talk with for 10 minutes, a family member with whom you keep a bridge open. Your social life does not have to be intense to be valuable. It has to be steady. Because steadiness, once again, is what rescues you from silent drift. And here is an important detail. Staying connected does not only give you company. It also forces you to stay present. You tidy yourself up a little more. You move more. You express yourself more. You remember stories. You organize your thoughts. You hear other perspectives. Even memory benefits from that small effort of staying in relation with others. The mind needs human stimulation. It does not live on television, walls, and memories alone. So do not shut yourself away more than you should. Peace is not the same thing as isolation, and calm should not turn into neglect. Look for healthy people, even if there are only a few. Keep at least a minimum social life, even if it is simple. Do not do it to look good or because of some cheerful slogan. Do it because when you cut off every connection, aging speeds up in a cruel and silent way. And you did not come this far just to disappear before your time. 6. Stop feeding your worries and train your mind to stay calm. This point is more serious than it seems because many people grow old first in the mind and only afterward in the body. They get used to living tense, expecting disasters, going over the same things again and again, exaggerating discomfort, imagining terrible endings for small problems. And the worst part is that they do not even notice anymore. It becomes their normal way of thinking, as if worrying all day were a sign of responsibility, when many times it is nothing more than anxiety dressed up to look respectable. Constant worry is exhausting. It does not make noise the way a visible illness does, but it wears you down brutally from the inside. It steals your sleep, raises your blood pressure, speeds up your pulse, keeps your nervous system switched on, and leaves you with no real rest. It is living in alarm mode even when the house is not on fire, and a body that spends too many hours on alert ends up paying the price. The mind grows tired, the mood turns dark, patience disappears, and even the face changes. Yes, you can also age through the expression of someone who has spent years fighting ghosts. There is a very common habit in old age that needs to be dismantled: confusing experience with pessimism. Because you have lived a long time, you think you already know everything will go wrong. Because you have seen losses, disappointments, illness, and betrayal, you convince yourself that worrying ahead of time is prudence, but it is not. Being attentive is one thing. Mentally poisoning yourself every day is something very different. Experience should give you judgment, not paranoia. And right in the middle of all that comes the question almost no one wants to ask. How much of your suffering comes from real events, and how much comes from the conversations you have alone in your own head? Because sometimes what is destroying you is not what happened, but what you keep repeating. It is not the problem, it is the loop. It is not the pain, it is the rumination. It is not the difficulty, it is the habit of embracing it, staring at it, turning it over, and serving it coffee as if it were a permanent guest. Epictetus was brutally clear about this. He said that what disturbs us is not what happens to us, but what we tell ourselves about what happens to us. And that lands exactly where it should. Because an untrained mind interprets everything as a threat, an insult, or a tragedy. A minor symptom already feels like a sentence. A silence already feels like rejection. A setback already feels like disaster. No body can live in peace like that. You poison it from the inside without needing any outside help. Training your mind to stay calm does not mean becoming naive or smiling like a holy card while everything falls apart. It means learning not to add unnecessary suffering to what already exists. It means lowering the mental drama, breathing before reacting, observing before concluding, asking yourself whether what you fear is actually happening or only taking place in the private theater of your imagination. Because the mind puts on theater too, and it does love a cheap tragedy when no one corrects it. Calm is a discipline. It does not fall from the sky. It is built. Sometimes with silence, sometimes with breathing, sometimes with prayer, sometimes with writing, sometimes by simply stopping yourself from talking about the same problem for the 10th time that day. It is also built by being careful about what you consume, the conversations you keep feeding, and the way you speak to yourself when something goes wrong. Not everything deserves your emotional energy. Not everything deserves an immediate judgment. Not everything deserves to settle in your chest for hours. And there is something deeply dignified about an older person who keeps their serenity, not because they feel nothing, but because they do not let themselves be dragged around by every fear that shows up. That calm inspires, supports, and brings order. It helps you decide better, rest better, and even show up better for the people you love. On the other hand, when you live by feeding your worries, you become a hostage to scenarios that may never happen. You give away your present ahead of time, a terrible bargain, by the way. So stop feeding every dark thought that knocks at the door. Do not sit it at the table, do not dress it up as absolute truth, and do not let it become master of the house. Learn to notice it, put it in its place, and move on with your day. Because at a certain age, peace of mind is not a spiritual luxury, it is a form of health. And the person who protects it grows older with far more dignity than the one who lives consumed by imaginary threats. 7. Do not ignore medical checkups or what your body is telling you. Act early. Many people behave here as if closing their eyes could change reality. They notice something is off, feel a new pain, a strange fatigue, shortness of breath, dizziness, loss of appetite, more frequent forgetfulness than usual, and instead of dealing with it, they sweep it under the rug with one very convenient phrase. It will pass. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it does not. And when it does not, the price of having waited is usually much higher than the discomfort of getting checked in time. There is a kind of stubbornness that was already a bad idea in youth, but in old age becomes outright dangerous. That habit of not wanting to bother anyone, not wanting to go to the doctor, not wanting tests, not wanting to know, as if knowing were the problem. No, the problem is not finding out. The problem is letting something progress while pretending it does not exist. The body speaks before it screams. First it whispers, then it insists, and then it forces you. And the longer you take to listen, the less room it leaves you. This is not about becoming obsessed with every sensation or turning yourself into a neurotic detective of every symptom. That would be another form of torture. It is about something far more sensible. Paying attention to changes, noticing patterns, getting basic checkups, following up, asking questions, preventing. Prevention has terrible publicity. Because it is not dramatic, many people underestimate it. But it avoids greater pain, harsher treatments, and scares that could have been stopped earlier. Once again, the quiet things do the most damage when you dismiss them. And here it is worth driving a question right into the middle of your chest. What exactly do you gain by postponing what you already know you should look into? A month of false peace? A few weeks of elegant denial? Because that is what many people do. They trade truth for delay and think they came out ahead. Until the day the body no longer asks, it declares. And then regret shows up. That late visitor who always arrives when acting sooner would have been far more useful. Marcus Aurelius wrote that you should not act as though you were going to live 10,000 years, and he did not say that to make you anxious, but to wake you up. Time is limited. So is your margin. That is why taking care of what is still in your hands is not fear. It is clarity. Getting a checkup, following a treatment, looking into that recurring sign does not make you weak or a hypochondriac. It makes you responsible. And at a certain age, responsibility for your health stops being optional if you want to preserve your independence. Besides, acting early does not only protect your body, it also protects your peace of mind. Because when you leave everything for later, your mind fills the gaps with fantasies, fears, and worse scenarios. On the other hand, when you consult, evaluate, and do what needs to be done, you recover something very valuable: clarity. Sometimes the problem will be smaller than you feared. Sometimes it will need attention. In both cases, knowing leaves you in a better position than guessing. And pay attention to this detail, because it matters a great deal. Do not ignore the small losses that seem normal just because they happen often with age either. Unusual weakness, frequent falls, sudden changes in sleep, swelling, confusion, prolonged sadness. Pains that turn into routine. Not everything is just part of getting older. Sometimes that phrase serves more to justify neglect than to explain anything. And neglect, as you already know, speeds up decline with terrible efficiency. So drop that absurd habit of pretending to be strong while your body is sending you signals. Strength is not about enduring things out of pride. It is about acting with judgment, listening, checking, preventing, stepping in. Because the person who responds in time keeps more ground, more energy, and more dignity. And the person who insists on ignoring the obvious eventually discovers that biology is not even slightly impressed by denial. 8. Let go of resentment and complaining. They age you faster than the years do. And now we come to the point that is most invisible to many people, but also one of the most destructive. Because there are people who do not just carry years, they carry grievances. They carry old arguments, disappointments they never digested, recycled wounds, injustices they go over again and again until those things become part of their identity. And in the meantime, they complain about everything. About their body, their children, the country, the weather, the food, the neighbor, the past, and the present. A whole life turned into a courtroom. And that way, of course, the soul wrinkles before the skin does. Resentment is a way of staying tied to what hurt you. You think you hold on to it so you will not forget, so you will not give in, so you will not seem weak. But in reality, it is that resentment that is holding on to you, draining you. It steals your lightness, your peace, your presence. Constant complaining does something similar. It turns your gaze into a machine for spotting flaws, offenses, and reasons to stay bitter. And when a person lives like that for years, they do not just harden inside. It shows on their face, in their voice, in the way they are with other people. Bitterness leaves a mark. It certainly does. This does not mean you have not been hurt, betrayed, or disappointed. Of course you have. Life hands out blows, and some of them go very deep. But one thing is to acknowledge the damage, and something very different is to build an altar to it. There are people who eat breakfast with their old grudges, have lunch with their victimhood, and go to bed replaying everything they were owed and never received. Then they wonder why they do not feel peace. Well, peace does not enter where the mind has spent years inviting the same anger back in. And here comes a question that really stings. Who are you punishing by keeping that resentment alive? The person who hurt you or yourself? Because almost always the answer is humiliating. The other person moved on with their life. Maybe they do not even think about you, and you are still keeping a luxury room ready for them inside your head. Free of charge, too. They pay no rent, they do not clean up, and they do not leave. And on top of that, you are the one serving them energy every single day. A disastrous emotional arrangement, if you will allow me to say so with some affection and a little irony. Marcus Aurelius once again understood this with fierce clarity. He reminded himself that other people's faults belong to them, not to you, and that your task is not to let someone else's wrongdoing poison your own character. That does not sound soft. It sounds strong. Because forgiving or letting go does not always mean reconciling or pretending nothing happened. Sometimes it simply means stopping yourself from drinking poison while hoping the other person will weaken. It means breaking the chain. It means not continuing to grow old on the inside because of something that already happened. Complaining also has a very specific corrosive effect. It retrains your attention to always look at what is missing, what bothers you, what went wrong. And a mind trained that way eventually becomes incapable of recognizing the value that still exists. A conversation, a sunrise, a simple meal, a visit, a small improvement, a quiet afternoon. Nothing is enough. Nothing satisfies. Nothing deserves gratitude. And when gratitude disappears, life becomes much heavier to carry, even if objectively it has not become all that much worse. Letting go does not mean becoming naive. It means stopping the feeding of what is making you sick. Sometimes it will require conversation, sometimes distance, sometimes prayer, sometimes silence, sometimes writing down what hurts and stopping the recitation of it. Sometimes accepting that there will be no perfect repair. That too is maturity. Not every ending arrives the way you would want it to. Even so, you can still choose not to keep dragging emotional chains around as if they were trophies of dignity. So let go a little. Let go at least enough to breathe better. Complain less. Loosen your grip on resentment. Stop turning every conversation into an inventory of bitterness. Age already brings its own challenges. There is no need to add the weight of a hardened heart. There are people who grow old, yes, but they remain bright, calm, easy to be around. And that is not an accident. They have learned to release what poisons them. That lesson does not erase the past. but it can give you back something immense in the present. Peace. And peace, believe me, rejuvenates more than many creams and more than all those ridiculous tricks some people use to try to fool time. If you made it this far, you have already seen that aging faster does not always depend on the years themselves, but on habits, neglect, and burdens that many people carry without realizing it. Moving more, sleeping better, eating more wisely, staying away from substances that shut you down, keeping healthy relationships, calming your mind, taking care of your health, and letting go of resentment are not small details. They are decisions that can completely change the way you move through this stage of life. Now, tell me in the comments which of these 8 points you need to work on most urgently. I am reading. I want to know which habit is stealing the most energy or peace from you right now. If this video stirred something in you, subscribe to the Stoic Garden and join me for the next ones. We are not here to decorate reality. We are here to face it directly so we can live with more dignity, more inner strength, and more calm. See you in the next video.